1. The Man in the Shadows. It was just another quiet night at the convenience store for Lisa, a college student working part-time to pay her bills. The graveyard shift was usually uneventful, a few customers buying snacks or cigarettes and the occasional late-night loiterer. But one particular night, things took a sinister turn. Around 2 a.m., Lisa noticed a man standing outside the store, just beyond the glow of the streetlights. He wasn't moving, just standing there, watching her through the large glass window. She brushed it off, assuming he was a homeless man resting or someone waiting for a ride. But after 20 minutes, he was still there, unmoving. Feeling uneasy, she locked the front doors. That's when the man started walking towards the store. He pressed his face against the glass, staring at her with an unsettling grin. Lisa's heart pounded as she reached for her phone to call the police. Before she could dial, the man suddenly turned and disappeared into the night. The police found no trace of him when they arrived. Lisa quit her job the next day. 2. The Ghost in the Hospital. Jason was a night shift nurse in an old hospital known for its creepy history. One night, while doing his rounds on the empty pediatric ward, he heard faint giggling coming from one of the rooms. Thinking it was strange but assuming it might be a lost child, he went to investigate. As he entered the room, he saw a small ball rolling across the floor, but there was no one there. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and he felt a cold breeze pass through him. He bolted out of the room and reported the incident to his supervisor. She looked at him with a knowing expression and said, "You've just met Lucy." Lucy, as it turned out, was a little girl who had passed away in the hospital decades ago. Many night shift staff reported seeing or hearing her over the years. Jason transferred to another hospital shortly after. 3. The Vanishing Hitchhiker. Mike, a truck driver, was used to long, lonely nights on the road. One foggy night, he was driving down a desolate highway when he saw a young woman standing by the roadside, thumbing for a ride. Feeling bad for her, he pulled over and offered her a ride. The woman silently climbed into the passenger seat, her face pale and her clothes drenched as if she'd been caught in a storm. Mike tried making small talk, but she only nodded or shook her head in response. After about 10 minutes, he glanced over to ask her a question, but the seat was empty. The woman had vanished. Shaken, Mike stopped at the next diner to collect himself. When he told the waitress what happened, her face went pale. "That's Mary," she said. "She's been hitchhiking on this road for years. People pick her up, and she always disappears. She died in an accident near here decades ago." 4. The Factory Apparition. Sarah worked the night shift at an old factory that manufactured parts for heavy machinery. The place had been operational since the 1940s and had its fair share of workplace accidents. One night, while doing inventory, Sarah heard the distinct sound of footsteps echoing in the empty warehouse. Thinking it was a coworker, she called out, but no one responded. She continued her work, but the footsteps grew louder, coming closer. She turned around and saw a shadowy figure standing at the end of the aisle. The figure wore what looked like an old-fashioned worker's uniform and a hard hat. When she blinked, the figure was gone. Sarah later learned that a worker had died in an accident in that very section of the warehouse in the 1950s. The ghost was said to roam the factory, ensuring no one else met the same fate. 5. The Midnight Caller. Tom was a security guard at an office building. His job was usually uneventful, involving patrols and monitoring surveillance cameras. But one night, he received a call on the office phone. The line was crackly, and a woman's voice whispered, "Help me." Alarmed, Tom tried to get more information, but the line went dead. He checked the surveillance footage to see if anyone had entered the building, but it showed nothing unusual. Thinking it might be a prank, he brushed it off. The calls continued throughout the night, each time with the same whispered plea. Tom eventually called the police, who traced the calls. To everyone's shock, the calls were coming from an unused line in the basement. When Tom and the officers investigated, they found an old phone in a dusty storage room, completely disconnected from any power source. Tom quit the next day. Night shifts might seem mundane, but for those who work them, the darkness often hides more than just shadows. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, these chilling tales serve as a reminder that the night can be as mysterious as it is terrifying.